Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Legendary Leaders. I am your host, Katrina Jameson. I am the founder of Legend Leaders, where we arm business leaders with the strategies they need to become legends, which means they live life on their terms. Now, I'm wrapping up the month of July. Can you believe we are now at the end of the month? Telling you, time is moving quickly. It always does when we're having fun. I appreciate you joining me this month. I have been talking about financials all month long, and today I'm wrapping up this series. We will always talk about financials, but I'm going to move on to a new topic for the month of August. So let's go ahead and wrap up financials. It would not be a financial conversation, a true financial conversation, if I didn't talk about expenses and profit just a little bit, right? I talked about generating revenue or getting sales, or I've talked about overall targets and creating targets in general. Let's talk about expenses. Let's talk about profit a little bit. Because why? Because cash is king, right? We have to have cash. We must have cash in our business. In order to have cash, we must manage our expenses effectively. Now, most people will fumble this a little bit, especially brand new business owners. And if you've done this a little bit, it's okay. I will tell you that the majority of business owners do. Perfectly fine. It's not that we can't get back from this fumble that I'm going to explain, but I'd love to help prevent you from making the fumble if I can. And that fumble is this. A lot of times because again, we're bringing our human selves into this business, we say things like, I must have this in my business in order to make money. Whatever this is. It could be a camera like I'm using right now, or lighting that I have, right? Or the microphone that I have on. I will tell myself, I must have these things in order to make money. Why do I say that? Because if you've listened to my earlier episodes, I talk about the fact that when we buy things, it's an emotional purchase. And then we logically rationalize why we must purchase it. We all do that in our businesses too. If you're a photographer, I must have the best camera, right? If I'm a handyman, I must have the best tools. Whatever it is that you're doing. If you're a marketer, I must have the best computer. I must, right? I must have these things in order to make money. That's what we tell ourselves as business owners. I must. And so then what happens? Well, we go out and we spend all this money and we buy all of these things that we then justify to say, I must have that. That's critical to my business. I must have this thing exactly at this price point. It's got to be super expensive. Got to have the best, because the best is what's going to make me money. Now, not everyone does that, but a lot of business owners do. And so then after we spend this money on all of these different tools, then we come back and say, okay, well, let me add the camera in. Let me add this expense in. Let me add all of these pieces in. And then after I do that, then I'm going to set my price point. And what happens? We've got to be competitive in the industry. We usually price our services too low because, again, a little self-doubt. And we don't want to be super high because we think that people are paying for us when in reality they're paying for our amazing skills and our knowledge. And so we price ourselves too low. So then what happens? A lot of expenses, low price point, we don't have any profit. We have no money left over. And many times when we're starting off, in the very beginning, we don't even save enough money to pay ourselves. Now, if you've quit your day job to jump into your business, you know you must pay yourself because this is the income you're living off of. So then you get into a little bit of a different situation altogether, where you must be able to have some sort of money left over after you pay for your expenses in order to move your business forward. And what I want you to think about, if you're just starting your business or you're really just getting into it, what I want you to think about is deciding what your profit must be in order to then determine what your expenses will be. Do it a little bit backwards. And if you've ever read the book Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, that's exactly what he talks about. So I'm going to take a little bit of training out of his book. If you haven't read it, check it out. It's a great book, but I'm going to paraphrase it. He gets all the credit. This is for Mike. But ultimately, what he teaches you to do in that book is he says, How much profit do you want to have left over every month? Awesome. Then let's back into your expenses. How much can you spend? How much should you pay yourself? How much can you spend on that camera to get you started? How much can you spend on the tools to get you started? Or the computer, or the software, or whatever it is. Because then you can say, well, I only want to charge this. I don't feel comfortable charging anymore, which will change as you get experience, I promise. Okay? I only want to charge this. I do need to have this much money left over. I got to pay my taxes. I want to invest in these other pieces. I want to have some money left over for emergency funds. All of the things we must have, right? Then in order to do that, set your revenue target, set your profit, and then figure out what your expenses can be in the middle. You're not going to go buy the best whatever, potentially. You're going to work your way to it. And that's perfectly fine. Because then what happens is we pull the emotion, but I want the best. We pull that out of our thought process, and then we stay in that logical frame of mind. I'm going to charge this. I want this much money left over. Here's how much I can afford to spend. And then you move forward. It's just like any other part of your life. When you think about making a budget or creating a budget for yourself in your home. You don't just say, hey, I want the best house. You say, here's how much money I make. Here's what I can afford, right? Here's what I want to have left over. Okay, here's my budget for my home. That's how you do it. It's the same thing in business. Don't do it any other way. So if you haven't read Mike's book, check it out. If you already have your business running and you're like, I'm making all this revenue, but where's my profit? It's because you probably keep investing and creating more expenses. And you get in the emotional side of, but I need, but I want, but if I do this, it'll make me more money. And it's all the emotion. Pull the emotion out. Manage your expenses. Create a process. Create a pathway to say, when I have this much money in the bank, and it's cash, okay, not just potential dollars, but actual cash that's there in the bank, that's sitting there, that you can do anything you want to do with, then you can decide what you want to do. Then you can say, okay, after putting 4 months of extra dollars in the bank, I'm going to take this small amount and I'm going to reinvest it in the business. I'm going to leave the cash there, though, in case I need it, in case I want to invest in something else, right? That's how you manage it. But expenses can eat you alive if you're not smart, if you don't create a plan, and if you're not intentional. Pull the emotion out of it. Anytime you can pull emotion out of a decision that you need to make in your business, do it. And so that's how you're going to do this with your expenses. Revenue, profit, expenses in the middle. How much can you spend? Stay within the budget. Create your target for how much you want to have in the bank before you reinvest anything back in the business, and decide what that reinvestment's going to be. There are always surprising expenses when you get started. There's always surprises in a business, period. Have the money there so when the surprises happen, it doesn't put you under. It doesn't take you out of business. Because that's what happens to a lot of business owners. It's ineffective planning, and it's allowing the expenses to get too large, and they just cannot generate enough revenue to keep up with it, or they're having to generate so much revenue that if something happens, they're out of business very quickly, or they're just chasing their tail. They're just generating more and more and more revenue, but they can't ever get out of that. And if you're finding yourself in any of those positions, reach out and give me a call. I'm happy to support you on that. I'd love to. It'd be my pleasure. It's exactly what I help my clients work through. From time to time, I help clients with that all the time. But if you don't want a mentor at this moment, if you're ready to tackle it on your own, do the gut check. What's your revenue? What are your expenses? Where is your profit now? Where do you need it to be? Pull the emotion out of it. Go sit down and create your plan and move your business forward. Hope that you've enjoyed this month of July focusing on financials. I can't wait to announce next week what our new topic is going to be for the month of August. I'm going to leave you purposely hanging because I can't wait for you to join me next month. As always, go and be legendary.